about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Spend time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the brujas let this last. I don't know.
That was the great sounds of Watts with Outside on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. EZ BlueZ, you are better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
Ladies and gentlemen, we speak of journeys every single time we have this show. I'm sure by now someone has tuned into the radio and goes, what journey is EZ talking about now? This is a very different type of journey, though. This is an internal journey. This is a journey through neurons, synapses, and to make sure things are popping the way that they should. This is a journey that teaches us not only how we became where we are, but exactly who we are, and to understand that. It helps us unpack, it helps us grow. Some people say it's a healing journey, but they also forget that when you are healing, pain will happen. And we have amazing human beings like our next guest here to help us navigate through those painful encounters that has helped craft us to be the us we are today. So for that, and for that alone, I want you to put your hands together. Mentally, we put our hands together because you could be driving right now listening to the radio and you need your hands at 10 and 2 because we are responsible here, even in the tunnels that we are in sometimes. We are massively responsible. I want you to put your hands together. For this is the first time I'm actually saying this to a doctor. We have a doctor on the show today. Put your hands together for Allyson, Dr. Allyson Regis. Welcome, benvenue, and let's get to some weirdness.
Thanks for that lovely introduction. I feel like I'm myself now too.
I like spectacles, and I feel that everybody should have a spectacle for them. That's one of the things that we do here is we try to, celebrate. You're getting an opportunity to tell your story, and that's a beautiful responsibility, and we don't take it lightly. So, we wanted to show you that you are special, and you are here with us today to talk about who you are, what you do, and how you got here. Now, you are a doctor. Yes. Now, some people from the intro might understand the type of doctor you are, but for those that aren't playing the home game, are you a, cut them open doctor, or are you like a sit down and have conversations doctor?
Oh, yeah. Do not trust me with a scalpel or any tools. I'm not that type of doctor, which I remind many members of my family too. So I am the sit on the couch, the maybe the stereotypical, how does that make you feel type of doctor. So I have a PhD in counseling psychology, and I'm a licensed psychologist in New York, which is where I'm from originally, and in Connecticut.
Now, it's awesome because, people, again, like your family members and things like that, you have this title by your name, and a lot of people are going to focus upon what they think that title is going to be, which really sits big for your industry as well, because there are a whole bunch of people who think what you do as a doctor in psychology is, what people saw in What About Bob? Or, having these cultural reference points, or even more on the scarier side of that industry, mental health in, the 20s to 50s and even early 60s was like lock you up and, electrocute your brain. How do you navigate through, when someone like, or someone like me who doesn't like talking about feelings or anything like that is meeting with a doctor like this, I automatically put those defense walls up because there is this incredible stigma that is there. How do you navigate through that stigma?
Yeah, I think that stigma is definitely there. It's definitely real. I mean, I think that there's a little bit less of it now, especially these days where, you know, you go on TikTok, you got people talking about their personal experiences. And so it's like normalizing it to a certain extent, even though I feel like there's a lot of terms that are being thrown around that may not necessarily, everyone's a narcissist. Uh, that's a whole other conversation. But I think, yeah, I think with some of the stigma, it's been interesting trying to really just think about it as a conversation, because I think even just as you were talking about historically, there's been so much kind of negative ideas about what mental health looks like, or what therapy looks like, or even, and some of these examples are probably not even as far back as the 20s and the 50s. So even for part of my training, I had to do clinical work in different settings. And one of the settings that I worked in was an inpatient psychiatric hospital. And this was probably back in, let's see what year, probably around 2013. So just about 10 years ago. And it wasn't maybe necessarily like one flew over the cuckoo's nest type of situation, but there was a lot of some of the stereotypes that you may think were actually a bit true in some of those settings. So I think part of the conversations I do have is like acknowledging that maybe some of the experiences that people have had around mental health or talking about mental health have been negative. Like sometimes people have gotten mental health or therapy used as a punishment. Like, oh, if you keep acting up, you're going to have to talk to the school counselor, or you're not going to get certain privileges or rights as just a person. So I think trying to just acknowledge that has been true for many people, so that their negative perceptions aren't coming out of nowhere, but also giving them the opportunity to understand that, you know, talking to me or just talking to anyone can look however we want it to look. So it's not something that's happening to them, but that's something that's happening with them.
Awesome, thank you. That's incredible, because you know, people can go through, and you always have, especially everyone still deals with, like, you know, the family based aspect, right? And everyone in the family has like that one bad therapist, you know, or, you know, psychologist story. You know, my mom had it when, like, after she gave birth to me, you know, she couldn't get a baby to calm down, you know, and she started to feel massively insignificant, and like no one was paying attention to her and no one was respecting her. So she went to a therapist, and her therapist fell asleep during her session.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, here you have someone who feels completely insignificant, and the person who's literally being paid to listen to you and invest in you is treating you like you're insignificant. But that also could be someone who like works super hard, and you know, there are all those other aspects of it. It really had nothing to do with my mother or that particular moment, but that is the stigma that goes forward. That is that extra generational trauma that is told, that is devalues these different type of thing. And there seems to be as much as more light brought upon, you know, the need for a strong mental health journey. There also seems to be that negative side coming up as well, where you're starting to see a lot more toxicity coming out in modern culture, stating that you shouldn't do that and you need to go back to this, and trying to recategorize things that are actually sociologically proven to be out there, very similar to, like, you know, why we're having a boom, as per the people that are now identifying in the trans aspect of it. You know, you can break that down to the actual science of it all, where when a species is dealt with overpopulation, this is something that nature takes over and actually helps to reprogram. But now you have people that are saying, no, we need to bring this back to a mental health issue, where it's really just an evolution issue. How do you deal with those negative aspects?
Yeah, I mean, I think like even the example that you gave with your mom, there is, I think, just like with any business, because it's hard to say, but I think sometimes, you know, therapy is also a business too. Like if you talk about pharmaceuticals and just other industries, it's the same thing. Like word of mouth is something that's very important. Advertising is very important. And so when you do have people who've had negative experiences, or you hear enough other people having negative experiences, it makes you not really want to engage, or like, I'm going to just give it a try. Especially when it comes to something like your mental health and the wounds that you have. It's, you don't want to just open that up to anyone. So
Right.
it's definitely understandable that people will just not until life may get you to the point where it's like, I don't really see any other choice. I guess I've tried everything else. Let me give that a try. And I think that sometimes too, even just when it comes to accessibility of services, that's also another issue, because you have so many people. It can be easy to say, oh, well, just find another therapist, because those have been conversations that I've had too. Like, if your therapist is constantly falling asleep on you, then probably may need another therapist, or at the very least to have a conversation about that. But it's not that easy to just, like, first of all, find another therapist, especially if you talk about insurance and other issues. But also, it's like, who may want to actually just open up again. It's like a bad relationship, It's like, I poured my heart out, I gave everything, I showed the parts of myself that maybe I have been hesitant about, and then I feel invalidated by somebody who's supposed to be in a position of power, like your therapist, who's falling asleep, making unsupportive comments, or maybe taking advantage of me in some type of way. And so I'm not going to open up myself again, or it's going to be very difficult for me to do that. So yeah, a lot of the stigma isn't just the stereotypes, but it's even just, what's happened to you or what's happened to other people in this industry too.
Pretty much, you can't fake a vibe.
Yeah, you really can't fake a vibe. I think that's one thing I've learned, is just like, because that's the thing, is that it's like a therapeutic relationship. So you're trying to, meet with someone, trying to, like, see who they are. And also, even just for some of the clients that I've had, they kind of get my vibe and see, whether I'm somebody that they want to work with too. So I don't really take it personally if someone's like, oh, I don't want to work with you. Like, I've had people who said they don't want to necessarily work with me. And sometimes we've worked through those things and sometimes we haven't. But I feel like people have to go for a vibe they feel comfortable with.
I understand. You really can't feel that attached to a patient either. Am I right?
Yeah, it's tough though, because it's like you kind of get invested, like you get invested in ways, but it's like a different type of investment, I feel like. So it's not the same way that you get invested maybe in a family member or a friend, where it's, because sometimes with that investment may come judgment, or it may come like, this is what I need you to do. Which is sometimes what brings people to therapy in the first place, is like, I can't maybe talk to my friends or family because they have a certain investment in what they want me to do with my life, or, oh, that didn't happen really like that in your childhood. Like, what are you talking about? Sometimes the invalidation. So it's like, I think as a therapist is trying to really find that balance of wanting whatever is best for my clients, and whatever is best is not what I define it as whatever is best, but how they define it. And because there have been decisions for some of my clients where I'm like, oh no, this does not seem like this is gonna go well. But at the same time, it's, people have to go through those experiences, and then we talk about it, what happened, and just be kind of being there for that person, even in some ways, like maybe a parent can be.
Now,
well, to me, it actually kind of, I'll oversimplify the relationship type of thing, but it seems like, when you're really invested in a show, and you really learn about these characters, and you start to care about these characters, and you just want what's best for these characters as they continue on their journey. But that journey is already written. You just need to see how it plays out, and be there for them when it starts to get tough, kind of aspect. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say so. It's definitely having enough investment to know what's happening in season 3, but also to know that you're going to help support someone, and even not even just helping to support them, but I think helping them to build the resources for them to be able to navigate situations themselves, even without you. Because I think part of, at least for me, the hope is that there'll be a certain point where we won't be meeting, and that's okay, because then they'll get to the point where they've internalized like a lot of things that have, like, they've taken away the things that maybe have not been serving them, that may have been actively harmful to them, that they've grown up with, and then rewriting their story in their way, maybe without me at a certain point.
Do you feel medication is a last resort and talking is better when it comes to mental health?
I'd say I think it depends, because I think sometimes I've seen for some individuals who may be going through, let's say, very bad anxiety or very bad depression, sometimes you may need certain medications, I think, to maybe get you to a place where you're able to maybe get out of the bed or not have, as much physiological response, so that you can actually talk to someone. Because sometimes when you're like deep down in that hole, it can be hard to even have whether it's like the physical energy, the mental energy to even engage with someone. So I think for some people, it may be necessary, at least at first, to kind of get up enough to be able to engage with talking to someone. But for other people, it may be something that they never experience, that they may never take medication, depending on what they're going to therapy for as well. So I would say it really depends.
Good to know. On WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ, and those behind the brand on 103.5 FM New Haven. We got Dr. Allyson Regis with us. Easy, your thoughts?
No, it's super interesting to me in particular, just because like I like to try to learn and become somewhat obsessed with as many things as humanly possible, and I love the art of the brain is something that I'm truly fascinated with. And being someone that is a writer and in those things, I want to find out about how different relationships are formed and different things like that. But when it came down, like I was one of those people that could help have conversations with other people and help them direct to the aspect, but also would lose almost myself in that, never took care of my own mental health journey because of a lot of sociological programming and different things like that, stating that we're not supposed to because we're dudes, or, we have all those different stigma that goes on. So I guess you kind of got into it knowing it's almost going to be like a thankless position. What made you want to do this?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely not something that you get like, hey, thanks for helping me with my mental health. I mean, it's a lot of it's very intrinsic. Like I see the changes that clients have made, and I'm just very proud of them. And knowing the amount of work that they put into getting to that space. I think for me, what got me into it, that was something I actually thought about the other day. Because someone was just kind of having me reflect on that a bit, and it's been something I've always been interested in. I think even as a child, like I was always kind of that friend, that people would go to, and I was always someone who was very quiet, and just like I would very much listen and try to understand like why are people the way that they are. I remember even finding a note a couple of years ago when I was going through like old notebooks from 5th grade, 6th grade, and one of them said, oh, when I grow up, and it was like a sentence stem, when I grow up, and it said, I want to help people with their emotional problems. And I remember looking at that and I was like, what 5th grader just knew about emotional problems? Like, what did I know about that? But it was something that I was very interested in. And I was also very fortunate. So I grew up in Queens, New York, and I just moved to New Haven 6 months ago. So I'm very much a New Yorker, born and raised. And in my high school, I went to Brooklyn Tech High School, one of the specialized high schools. And in our high school, we had to pick a major in our junior and senior year and start taking classes towards it. And so I was able to take classes. I was part of the social science research major, and I was able to start taking classes in psychology, sociology, research, American culture, and just really start to learn more about that. And then that really sparked a lot of my interest. So then, going to school afterwards, I was like, yeah, this psychology thing, I really want to study. Sociology, I really want to study. And then I also studied business administration too. So it started a long time ago in an odd way.
No, that's awesome. I mean, if we all had the focus and the able to see the direction in high school in which we were supposed to walk out, that would be amazing, right? That's like the super end goal. but it's also super interesting for me as well, because in your industry, it's all about, helping someone unpack and, help to rebuild themselves. But you then have to take on these things. You then have to overfill your cup. How do you navigate, not only processing everything that's going on in your life and those, familial relationships, or, but also now how you process from, because you're dealing with a lot of trauma, whether it be, it's not yours, but you're still face to face with it. Is it like, I take a one weekend a month and put a she shed together or something? Like, how do you deal with this? Because that's a lot. Like, high five, that's a lot.
Mhm.
So yeah, a lot of it is, well, I would say part of my training was also, part of the conversations we had was just how to separate what's ours from what someone else's.
Mhm.
And that's even like for ourselves, but even sometimes helping our clients to work through some of those things too, because
Right.
sometimes like the clients that I've had have been like the caretakers and the one that they're, there for everyone else. And so I think what's been helpful for me has been my own therapy. Because it's like when I'm seeing things, experiencing things, like I need an outlet to be able to talk about those things too. So I would say it's not that as a therapist or a psychologist that like I'm perfect and I've got like the optimal level of everything, but I'm also a person who has worked through my things, or I'm constantly, working through making sure that I'm good, to be good for other people. But yeah, a lot of it I think for me has been trying to figure out how to take a step, maybe not exactly a step back, but a step differently. So I would say for me, at a certain point, it just got to be a lot with, just seeing clients all the time. Even I was seeing I had maybe about 40 clients or so on my caseload. So some days I'd be seeing like 7 clients, which you usually have 45 to 50-minute sessions. So, and
Right.
then you need time to write notes, need time for lunch, and just to kind of get a mental break. And I realized a couple years ago that that may not be what exactly I want to do, just for myself, but I still want to be able to help support people in their well-being. And so for me, that actually ended up with a slight career shift. So
Mhm.
what actually got me to New Haven was taking a position at Southern as the running their well-being center. So doing a lot more outreach, a lot more prevention work. So instead of working in the counseling center, I work alongside the counseling services to do a lot of the work that on campus with students to help support them, help get them to resources. And I'm still using my degree and my experience, but not necessarily burning myself out with seeing so many
Mhm.
clients all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, and that's really the key, and also such a beautiful way to transition into what you're doing now. So high five on that. Very well played. Very well played. But that's seems to be the key point of this is no, like, the mental health journey doesn't, it's not like some will say, people who believe in the religious aspects, will go and do whatever they want to do, as long as, and then they'll say, I'm sorry on Sunday, and then go do again whatever they want to do, but then come back or say sorry on Saturday or on Sunday, and everything's fine. You don't just show up to your therapist once a week, take that 45 minutes, vent your soul, and then go back to living the exact same way you were living before. You need to take some of these tools and apply it,
Yeah.
so that you can continue to move forward. Um, I'm trying. I don't want you to like give specific stories, because that's wrong and that's a HIPAA violation. But like, have you ever had like that client that was literally treating it like it was, I'm at the bar until 2 a.m. on Saturday, but as long as I'm in the pews on Sunday, we're good? Did you have those type of lazy clients?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, definitely, I think what you're speaking to is that therapy is work. Like a lot of
Mhm.
times, I think people can think therapy is just like, I'm going to sit on the couch and just talk and then just, kind of go about my business. And I mean, depending on what you're looking for, maybe that's what you need. Maybe you need a space to do that. But I think generally the clients that I've seen, there's usually been certain goals that they've had that
Mhm.
they really want to work towards. And just like with anything else, you really can't just do like 45 minutes over a week or 2 weeks, if I'm seeing someone bi-weekly, and just, have everything magically be different. So there is definitely a lot of work that needs to go into it. I think sometimes with my clients, it's been trying to define maybe what that work looks like for them. Because sometimes it can be discouraging, if you're actually trying and you don't see certain changes, or maybe a lot of it's situational in maybe their families or the other experiences that they have. So it's not something that you can just easily change because the situation itself hasn't really changed. So sometimes the goal has been, how can I deal with the situation that's happening rather than changing the situation, because it may not be something they can change. But I've definitely had clients where it's felt like, the analogy I give is like, I feel like a pumpkin. So what I mean is, like, I feel like, let's say if you put a pumpkin in my place, would the session be the same?
It's
Like,
funny
would
that you're saying that because you're wearing orange.
Yeah, no,
Just saying. I had to put it out there.
Branding.
Yes. Pumpkin, orange. And so sometimes it can feel like, I've had clients where it doesn't feel like they're talking with me. It feels like they're talking at me. So that's kind of where the pumpkin analogy comes in, because it sometimes can feel like, there's not really room for me to say anything. And it's like, I'm not trying to interrupt all the time, but you also need to leave space for someone else to be able to maybe challenge some of the things that you might be saying, or clarify some of what you're saying, or really do some of the work, even in the session, to then be able to take it outside the session. So I'm definitely somebody who believes in homework, because it's really, you can't just, I think, do 45 to 50 minutes a week and just expect things to be very different. So I've definitely had clients where that's really not the case, and we didn't necessarily see the movement that maybe they were hoping for or expecting. And sometimes I've had kind of like what I was alluding to before, some clients say like, oh, I don't know if I want to work with you anymore. It just feels like we're not going anywhere. So sometimes I've had to just like, okay, let's take a step back and like talk about maybe our dynamic, or, what's happening outside of sessions, or some of the goals. And also, so I'm not saying like I'm blameless, because maybe I could have identified certain patterns before as well, but also they're part of the dynamic too. They're part of what's going on. So also letting them see that too.
And it's interesting because the more in depth you explain the situation, there are a ton of similarities, like to parenting. It is a thing in which it is a career, parenting, that you're super invested, you're super, everything so dependent upon, but you need to be so good at your job, you're working to be irrelevant. You're working so that they no longer need you to go forward there. But again, from a business point of view, that is by far one of the worst business schematics you could ever go by. Your business plan is atrocious. You can't fix everybody. Break them a little bit. So, just halfway through the session, be like, oh yeah, and there's a monster lives under your bed. Like some, make sure you get that repeat business, because we have a bottom line that you have to hit. How do you navigate, the amazing, good healing portion of this incredible career that you're on, but also pay the bills?
Well, I think part of that is where it comes to like diversifying a lot of what we do as therapists. So for me, the business that I have, because just like everybody else these days, you got a main hustle, you got a side hustle. So one of my side hustles is actually my business, Liberated Professionals, and it's a career coaching business. So it's not a therapy business, but it's more around career counseling, because I believe that career and mental health are very much connected. Like if you ever think about a job that you've had that you hated and how that negatively affects your mental health, or if you think about maybe career indecision, feeling stuck, feeling confused, and how that can really affect your mental health, or even vice versa, having mental health concerns that affect maybe your ability to work, or even just kind of back to what I was saying before of like my high school, in some ways preparing me, that's usually not the norm. Or oftentimes it's like, take the exams and, figure it out afterwards. And so a lot of times people get very stuck. And, sometimes I've had clients who are like, I just feel like I could have made more of myself, or I don't know what I'm doing, or everybody seems to have it figured out by such and such age. So that's like the work. I've always been interested in career. So that's the work that I've been doing. But also even just diversifying, like I know a lot of my colleagues who have their private practices. Some of us also teach. So for me, I teach mental health counseling to students who are training to be like the next generation. I also do consultations with corporations. So trying to also help them to develop better wellness and DEI practices, diversity, equity, and inclusion practices too. So I think it's kind of like you were saying, a poor business model of people necessarily getting better. But I think even speaking to the idea that there are a lot of people who aren't necessarily well. So it is a little bit of like I don't know, like what are those things? Oh, like those rotating doors?
Yes, yeah, the revolving door type of aspect.
Yeah, no, so there are usually people who need help and support.
No, I think it's awesome. Plus, I mean, we can also talk about like different type of branding aspect, because here you are sitting in the orange talking about a pumpkin, maybe shirts, maybe like, Dr. Allyson, be a pumpkin. You know what I mean? Like shirts, have your own sort of wear. You're working with college kids now. They buy anything. It'll be fine. They're spending their parents' money. Get your merch game hustle up. Like, let's see what goes on. But honestly, I would love to see that, because as someone who is massively resistant to mental health journey for myself for like so long, and now really engaging in that and fighting through it and not being happy about it. But, I'm there. I truly understand the importance of the mental health journey and like what y'all do. I would love to start seeing like some of you guys like releasing some merch and like, kind of jumping into that forefront, because it is that important. There should be that type of celebration, and especially for, you're signing up for a really thankless job. Like, you're dealing with everyone else's spit and it's tough. And obviously you're engaging, you're in your own mental health journey, different things like that. What is the perfect aspect of, say, like a self-care starter kit for the listener playing the home game? Let's talk about a reasonable self-care starter kit.
Yes. So I just going back a little bit to what you were saying, there's actually been a lot of like I've seen actually more merch, even like I have a cute healing in color shirt, therapy for us, by us. So talking more about like therapy in communities of color, even more of those like conversation cards that have been super popular with like dating, but even just more so around therapy and mental health. So I think that's been actually really good to see there be a lot more community conversations around that. But in terms of a self-care starter kit, oh, that's interesting. That actually reminds me of a program that we're trying to do at Southern with students, is actually having them make have a box and like a self-care, or like a box that they can just open, and it sort of remind them of things that are good for them. So maybe a self-care starter kit might involve thinking about, or maybe even writing down some who might be people who are your supports, because not everybody in your circle is supportive, and not everyone can provide support. So some people may have good intentions, but the delivery leaves a lot to be desired. So I think being able to identify like who is actually helpful for your mental health, what activities might be helpful for your mental health. So, and I think that different feelings and different situations require different activities. So what I mean is that you might have, let's say if you're having a really bad day, maybe you're just like, I'm not really in the mood to talk to someone, but I'm in the mood to listen to music. So like, what are your favorite songs? Or I may just feel very antsy, so I may need to just go to take a walk. So maybe what's your favorite place to go walk to or go see? So sometimes you may have different feelings that may require different tools, I guess. So I think even in the starter kit is maybe being able to think about not just one activity, talk to a friend, because what if you're mad at the friend, or what if you don't want to talk to the friend about the issue? You need a variety of things. So yeah, those are just some quick things I could think of.
Well played.
Very
All
nice
right.
one.
Yeah, no, seriously, I totally put you on the spot there, and you threw it together amazingly. Like a high five. We're giving out a lot of high fives today on the
I
show.
love it.
It's pretty awesome. But no, it's super interesting, and now that you're doing this and actively engaging in the college aspect and dealing with college kids, which that's a whole nother like stress level. A lot of people that are breaking from their norm to go into different things, and a lot less rules are in play, but yet a lot more consequences can be put out there. Um, you know, how has it been, helping these kids navigate, their not only mental health journey, but you're a lot more, on site and dealing with even just the maybe you make some right choices, journey as well. How is it like dealing with college kids? Ooh.
Yeah, I actually really love it. I've been doing it for in some capacity over
Mhm.
probably about 12 years. So I really enjoyed that because I also had experiences working in hospitals, so working with kids, working with adults, and I actually prefer college students. Partly because they I think for the most part a lot of them that I've worked with have just been very open to change and to having some of these conversations a little bit more than other people or other groups that I've worked with. I think that they they sometimes I don't think always get enough credit for the difficulties that they go through.
Mm.
Because even when I would talk to colleagues about like we would talk about, oh well, where are you working? What are you doing? And I mentioned working in a college, they're like, oh, well, what problems do these students have? Their boyfriend broke up with them. And it's like, no, like so it's been interesting to try to really even sometimes in my profession, really educate people that college students sometimes it's despite everything that they're going through that they're still there, they're still
Mhm.
persevering and still being very resilient. So I think that it's been I actually very much enjoy working with them, especially um I think what's been interesting has been because I've worked on some campuses where it's primarily residential. So you've got the
Mhm.
students who are in the dorms, staying the weekend, very much embedded in the culture of that environment. And then to others where it's very much, you go in, take your classes, you dip out to work, you dip out to
Mhm.
home or whatever, you commute or whatever that experience is. And so sometimes really trying to reach out and connect with students on both of those ends have really presented different challenges because, if a student's not physically there, it's hard to really get them to go to programs or even to get them to make time to really talk. But also that traditional college age may be the first time some people may be experiencing significant mental health issues or having some type of psychological break if we're going to talk about schizophrenia or other issues.
Mhm.
So it's actually a very important age that I think doesn't always get highlighted.
It is
No,
getting highlighted on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City May, EZ Blues in the building. Continue, EZ. I know you're about to say something.
well, no, it's so interesting that because I hear like college kids and I automatically think of like all the trauma and stuff that they have to go through and what it's like to be cast out from a place that you knew your laundry was going to get done every single day to like now having to learn how to do laundry and all of these different skills that you now have to be able to reproduce while figuring out who you are while navigating through the first time you're dealing with a schedule into yourself. People don't understand, throughout the first 12, we'll say 13 years of schooling, you're told when to get up. Someone's there to wake you up. You're put on a bus. Someone takes you to where it is. You know exactly what your class is. You stay in that class for a long period of time. And then that changes. So you change to a different classes and stuff like that. But a college experience is even more because no one's going to tell you to get up. No one really cares if you show up to class. It all of that weight falls upon you when you've never really had to be super responsible prior because you had that safety net. So it would be more terrifying, like just hearing, the tragedy. And then also other people are horrible. Like let's be real. I'm a pragmatist, but like us as a species, we're gross. We
Yes.
just are. It's just the way things go. and now you have to deal with other people, and then they bring, and how dare they bring their trauma into it. It's to me a recipe for failure and destruction. I would think your job is one of the hardest out there because you are dealing with, all these kids that they're still kind of new here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they definitely are. And I think even adding in the pandemic has been even just more of a challenge too, because
Hmm.
there's been like a lot less social emotional growth, a lot even in terms of academics, like students have struggled a lot more. um because so before I came here, I was working in an opportunity program at a college, so helping students navigate not only like some of their mental health but also their academics. So how are you doing in school? And it was interesting to see that a lot really struggled in high school because of the pandemic. And then, now you're freshmen or even sophomores in college, and there's like even math or English, like those basic subjects, you don't necessarily have that level that you would really usually be expected to have. But now everyone just expects you to just know how to write an essay,
Hmm.
know how to do, APA or MLA formatting for your papers. So, and then even on a social level, part of the challenge that we've had has been how do we get students to be involved, to engage, because they've been isolated for so long, or even the students who live on campus aren't necessarily going downstairs to maybe the programs that are happening in their building. So it's been kind of a challenge trying to figure out how to really help students engage again, and just talk to each other, just
Hmm.
be open with each other, because it's just looked different these past couple of years.
No, it is. It's super super interesting and super different. I have youngsters. I have twin 13-year-olds and a 16-year-old. And I see the difference. And I it's not a compare and contrast type of thing. This is a different world in which they're growing up, and those different aspects. But it's difficult to take an engagement where they're so used to it being a digital engagement. And I'm not pouring salt on anyone's hustle. I mean, we're technically using technology so we can have
Yeah.
this interview. So, like, I get it. It's important. We need to use it, but maybe not as much. Like, it shouldn't. I don't feel that anything, singular thing should be your personality focus point. Like, it should not be that aspect. But especially with the pandemic and all these kind of things, we have now kind of withdrawn. So a social mixer isn't going to pop off the way it would at some points in time. Now, yes,
Yeah.
now it'd also probably be a lot more responsible, and it's not like you got to worry about the dude pouring the dubras into the punch bowl, because not only should they not be drinking, but they definitely should not be drinking dubras. That's a crime until your insides. Um, yeah, teach them right. But as you continue to go through, how are you helping to bridge that gap? How do you make it entertaining? Are you starting to like bring kind of video game culture in there? Like, are you doing like mental health Super Smash Brothers tournament, or is it more just that kind of thing of like, hey, we're all going to come down and shoot a TikTok video together? Or so like, how are you engaging and using the wonderful crutch that is technology that has made your job harder, but now you're also trying to make it easier with it? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's been something that we've been trying to figure out how to use and use well. And I think
Hmm.
at least where I'm at right now at Southern, I have some graduate interns, so they're a bit closer in age
Hmm.
with some of the undergraduate students, and also the age of the graduate students, because I'm a little bit older than them. May not look it, but it I think it also helps to have investment from people who are part of that generation or that group, because for someone like me, it can be easy to say, oh, let's just do this because this is what's worked before, this worked when I was their age or something. So it's been important, I think, to try to be very up to date or understand a little bit more about the trends, or even just trying to hear from them what are the conversations that they want to have. Because I know what conversations I think might be very important to have, but
Hmm.
maybe those aren't the conversations that they want to have, or maybe they want to have it in a different way. So we've really tried to get away from just talking at students,
Hmm.
because they're in classes all day. I wouldn't want to listen to somebody just talking at me. And so we really try to make sure we're doing uh, ideas that involve activities, or even when the weather's nicer, we're going to be doing activities outside,
Hmm.
or having some type of like Usually a little gimmick, like a little raffle or some food. Just even, people want to eat and talk and kind of have a little bit more of a social thing. So it doesn't have to be as serious as, let's talk about your mental health. Like, we want to let's just talk about like one of the topics that has come up, ironically enough, has been relationships and like trying to date and online dating and all these things. And so let's make a program about it. And maybe before the program have, because we have an Instagram page. So maybe let's film some students with some hot takes. So then people will be really excited about the program. Like, wait, we're going to get to debate and talk about why dating is trash in 2023. Okay. So trying to kind of meet them where they're at, I think, a little bit more, whether it's using TikTok or Facebook, well, not really Facebook, Instagram, and just seeing a little bit more. It's a lot of it's honestly trial and error right now.
That first of all, that's awesome, and I now am fascinated with a debate on why like dating is trash in 2023, and I would love to be in that debate, because I would just walk up and be like, dating has always been trash. Have a good day, and like I would just walk on, because like, again, people, we're a horrible species, but it's just super interesting, and it also, I guess, has to be a little more enriching, because you are dealing with the younger generation who has been a lot more brought up in the positive side of a mental health journey, in the importance of a mental health journey. They've had a lot more aware parents, a lot, that have had the opportunity to engage more. And again, I pour no salt in anyone's hustle. You did what you needed to do to survive. You are here now. Handle what you got to handle. Nothing is, as long as it's legal, I don't say any type of thing is an incorrect way of doing anything. It's just the way that you had to get it done. So before everyone jumps on that hate that everyone was on the keyboard, they're like, no, you're all good. I appreciate you all. And again, all hate mail, feel free to send to Prestige. He's got you covered. Don't send it to me, because I don't care. But as you're continuing to go, do you see more of that aspect where this generation is a lot more susceptible to the mental health journey, and like you have older heads like myself and the generation before me, that's like, ew, no, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to choke down the feelings and then marinate that with Jack Daniels. Is it easier now?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's felt a bit easier to have certain conversations. I think especially, trying to have these conversations on a college campus, even like we've been working with faculty members to think about and talk about how do we incorporate wellness or well-being into the classroom. So because you're not really just in your own bubble, like even just the environment that you're in on a campus or in a class can really impact your mental health. If you say you can't miss any days, there are no extensions, no excuses. It's also like, okay, well, I missed one day, something happened, I'm probably going to fail this class. And then you just spiral maybe sometimes from there. So we're trying to also build that in the classroom. But I think it's definitely been a lot easier. Even if people don't always have like the terminology correct, or, they're still kind of learning that stuff. It's, I think, been easier to have some of those conversations in an open way, or at least in a, I would say like a non or very little judgmental type of way. Whereas I feel like in talking to people maybe of like my parents' generation, that's been a lot more challenging to do. Like even when I decided to become a psychologist, for some people, it was very much like, what are you doing? You want to work with who? Or they assume, oh, you want to work, at a mental institution or something. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily what I want to do. And this is why I want to do it. So it was like a lot more, I think, explaining, 10, 15 years ago than there is, I think, now. I think now the only issue is trying to make sure that people are using maybe terms a little bit better, or like I was saying before about narcissism, or just about toxic, this person's toxic, this is toxic. And for me, at least, it's just trying to maybe change the language. Instead of saying that person is toxic, it's like maybe the behaviors that they're doing are toxic or have a negative effect, rather than just like labeling a whole person and saying that they're horrible, which maybe they're doing a lot of horrible things. So it's understandable, but you also want to you wouldn't want somebody to just label you as a horrible person based on a couple of things you've done. So.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything that you're saying, and I love how you went back there, because I wanted to talk about that whole narcissism thing. Oh, everyone's so narcissistic, and you discover this like on TikTok,
Yeah.
a platform that is there to get more eyes upon every single person that is making content there. And in the entertainment field, period, you have to have a little bit of narcissism in there. There's a part of you that has to walk around and go, "Hey, look at me, I'm important." So
yeah.
And Easy Blues, we're all important, but we only have a minute left of this broadcast. Allyson, this time is going to be for you. Just please talk about any future events that you're going to be a part of, any inspiring advice for someone who wants to go at least to a similar path as yours, career-wise, and last but not least, please give up that social media for anyone who wants to contact you. This time is yours.
Sure. So actually an event that we have coming up, which is open to the public, it is on April 12th at 7:00 in the Adante Student Center at Southern Connecticut State University. We're having a well-being in the Black community panel. So I'll be on the panel along with someone else with a public health background and an alum to talk a little bit more about just what wellness looks like in the Black community. And also I would say for anyone who's interested in going into this field, you definitely have to be ready and willing to work on your own stuff before you can be in a position, I think, to really support someone in the ways that they need and not make it about yourself and your own wounds that are coming up. And I would say in terms of my social media, the best would probably be my website, which is www.liberatedpro.com.
Allyson, thank you so much for being a part of Behind the Brand. We really do appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It was a great time. Easy. Love you. Myself, Prestige, WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. And this has been Behind the Brand.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, meanwhile focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the brujas